What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, man. Hope you guys had a great week. We weren't able to put out any videos. I wasn't able to put out any videos this week. Had a little bit of some stuff going on. And to be honest with you, I started this channel so that way I could do this when I wanted to and when I liked to and when it was most convenient for me. I was holding myself to a bit of a schedule at first just to get back into the routine. Now I feel that I'm back into the routine, and so I'm able to take a little bit more time and do some in-depth research on each video that I do, and not rush through them like we were doing in the picks videos. I felt like it was very rushed. I had fun doing it, and I'll continue to do it into next year, but we'll probably slow up this at the end of this year just because the games have been a bit more muddled. The games have been just a little bit harder, not harder to pick, but I feel like it's not something you guys are interested in seeing. I'm more interested in doing in-depth stuff, and like I said, I'll keep doing the picks early on into next year, and we'll keep doing some NBA stuff. But I feel like I want to come up with different videos that kind of each video is different, and you guys don't fall into like some kind of routine. And so that's just me. But if you click this video, it's because you're interested in hearing how I think an NFL organization should rebuild from the top down. Today we're doing the New Orleans Saints, which conveniently is my favorite team. So it's a little bit easier for me to talk about. Like I said, hopefully this video will be have a higher production value. I would like to add some graphics after in post edit. So that's something I'm working on as well. Just becoming a better editor and being able to make things fit better in the flow of the video. And so I'm really just trying to show off my talents, and I'm trying to build a portfolio. As you guys know, that's why we started back up the channel. I would like a career in sports, so I feel like this is a really good way to show that I'm able to research, edit, produce, and talk about sports. Obviously, that's the content that you guys are here for. So there's four main steps. We're going to break down the four main steps first, tell you what they are, and then go into depth into each one. The first four steps are right here. Number one step, as you guys can see, is the organization needs to realize it's in a rebuild, and so do the fans. This team has a lot of lovable players, has a lot of lovable coaches. Well, maybe not so much coaches, but maybe just personalities on the sideline. And unfortunately, it's time to let it go. And the first step of any of that is to let the people know, let the team know that it's just that era has come to an end. The Drew Brees, Sean Payton era is over. We don't need to keep hanging on to different things like that. We brought Jimmy Graham back this year. It was a fun story, but it's just time to clean house and become a different organization. You always have the building blocks, players like Cam Jordan, who is teaching, all of the younger guys on the defensive side of the ball what it means to be a New Orleans Saint. You've got some guys like Michael Thomas on the offensive side of the ball and Alvin Kamara who are able to teach the offensive younger guys what it means to be a New Orleans Saint. But unfortunately, the era of that is just over. I'm filming this on Sunday, and yes, we won. We beat the Giants. I'm well aware of that, but it's just time. So that's the first step. The second step is trading all of our tradable assets. We have to clear cap room. I believe we're like $87 million over the cap for next year already. It might not be $87 million. I feel like I might have wrote it down. But it's a ridiculous amount of money over the cap for next year already. And so we have to be able to move some of those pieces off of our book. I know cap hits and different things like that will take place, but I don't plan on us winning a lot next year. If we're paying all this money and barely winning this year, we're not even 500. We're not even a 500 team. I don't plan on us being spectacular next year. So with any rebuild, there's going to be some rough years. And I feel as if it would be a lot easier for a lot of Saints fans to swallow the pill of a rebuild if there was at least steps to a rebuild taking place instead of just trying to stay not even a contender, but just a winning team or close to a winning team. And so that's the second step. The third step is we have to fix the coaching staff, man. As we know, the Saints offense, especially in the red zone, is terrible. It's miserable to watch. Derek Carr does not look anything like he did as an Oakland Raider, or maybe he did. Maybe he is, but it's just, nothing looks good purely from a fan's perspective, that's where you guys know I'm coming from. It doesn't look good. It hasn't looked good this whole entire year. There have been flashes. I'll give them that, but it doesn't look good. And so Dennis Allen is not the guy, in my opinion. Pete Carmichael is not the guy, in my opinion. I think we can all agree on Pete Carmichael at the very least. Step 4 is drafting. Now, this video took, like I said, a lot of research. And so at the time that I have had all my research put together, we currently have the number 9 draft pick overall in this year's NFL draft. I believe it might have dropped now with the win to the Giants and last week's win. But this is purely from the time I did the research, so just bear with me. We have to be able to draft better. And I have 2 candidates that we'll talk about for that number 9 overall spot. But obviously, a lot has to happen with the coaching and different things like that. So, yeah, step 1 is pretty self-explanatory. We're going to start diving into these. As we all know, step 1 is realizing that you have a problem, right? It's the same thing with addiction and everything else like that. If you don't know you don't have a problem, you can't fix it. So we have to acknowledge that we have a problem. It's very simple. It's very easy. Acknowledge you have a problem, acknowledge that you need a plan, and start forming the plan. So this is what this video is about. So step 1's easy, for me at least. I know that we have a problem and we need to fix it. And I have the plan that I believe would make me happy at the very least. So that's step number 1. That's easy, right? Step number 1 is very, very easy. Number 2, it's a little bit harder because I have grown to really appreciate the things that these guys have done on the New Orleans Saints team. We got to trade guys. We got to be able to bring in draft capital. We got to be able to get numbers off the books for next year. It's simple. We talked about it earlier. I think we have a couple of guys. We've also heard in the past couple of seasons, man, some different rumors about different players going to different teams. One main that I have keep hearing is Alvin Kamara to the Buffalo Bills. Not sure if that's going to happen. It obviously didn't happen this past trade deadline. With the way this season has been and the way that Alvin Kamara has answered some post-game questions and just his overall vibe, I just feel like he's not happy there, and I can't blame him. The guy is still a stud. He's still playing some really, really good football. And I think if you get him on a contender, he'll be able to really help. And at the end of the day, I hope these guys go on to have success on other teams because it's not going to happen right now in New Orleans. So I think Alvin Kamara would be somebody that we could get some decent draft capital back for. Marshawn Lattimore is another guy who I think a top contender would love to have on their team. He's a very, very, very good defensive player. Alongside Alvin Kamara, obviously very talented offensive guy. I think these 2 guys are somebody who they make good money, and so they'll be able to help us take a little bit of chunks out of the salary cap hell that we're in right now as a New Orleans Saints organization. Obviously, it would suck to see those guys go, but as we mentioned, man, step 1 was to just kind of get over it and acknowledge that these guys won't be able to help us with the current situation that we are in. And listen, this was going to suck because he has a huge cap hit, but we have to cut Derek Carr. Nobody's going to trade for him. We have to cut him. I don't even know. I'm pretty sure with the contract he has, there is an out for the Saints this year. I'm not 100% sure. I'm also not 100% sure because I don't know how to read lawyer speak and contract speak. It's something I'm trying to figure out as well. But to my knowledge, I believe the team has an out. I don't know if cutting him would work or whatever it means, but he needs to be gone. He has not lived up to the play. And so for me personally, cutting, getting rid of, trading, whatever the case may be, even if we have to keep them, just bench them, and we'll, whatever. Obviously, we'll talk about some draft picks here in a few minutes. Gives you a little bit of a look into what we're looking to get with the draft picks, but he has to. It's just not there. Derek Carr is a quarterback you go out and get when you're trying to be competitive. These guys that we have on the team are studs, and you have them to be competitive. And so I just don't think that the mix of the guys we have with the coaching staff that we have and the scheme that we have, it just doesn't equal winning. We can barely beat bad teams, and when we beat bad teams, it doesn't look pretty, and vice versa. It's been a very disappointing season for the New Orleans Saints, especially going into the hopes that we had for this team. Winning the division. Obviously, we still can, but not in the way we wanted to, right? You know, you can never really complain, I guess, about making the playoffs, but I'm complaining. If we make the playoffs, we shouldn't be in the playoffs. Nobody from this division should be in the playoffs at all, and it's just a mess. So, you know, moving on from trading, which was step number 2, and getting back some asset. After getting rid of those players that we talked about, even though it might suck, with the exception of Derek Carr, really not a fan of that at all. But now we move on to the coaching staff. The coaching staff has to go. Every single person, every single coordinator, every single strength coach, every single not that's a bit over exaggerated, but we have to do a deep clean of the coaching staff for the New Orleans Saints, and I have some notable coaches that should be available this coming offseason. A couple that I was high on last year, and Eric Bieniemy. We'll start there. He's the Washington offensive coordinator now. He might not even be on the market because Ron Rivera is probably going to be fired for the Washington Commanders this offseason. Just doesn't look like he not coaching his best ball right now, old Ron Rivera. And so I could see Washington maybe hiring from within with Eric Bieniemy. I do like him, though, as a coach. I wanted him to be there last year. They have 2 offensive coordinators and 2 defensive coordinators on this list, so we'll go one by one. First defensive coordinator I see that could be a good hire for the New Orleans Saints is Steve Wilks, the 49ers DC. I do believe he's done a really good job with the 49ers defense. Obviously, how could you not with all the studs they have on there? So that is something we'd have to look at. Is the talent really good or is the coaching really good? I do believe he is a good coach. I think we've seen him at a couple of places, and he's coached the teams very well. And so I would not be mad at Steve Wilks being a candidate that the New Orleans Saints could look at or even higher. The best option moving back to the offensive coordinator is obviously Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. He was a very big hire option last year, decided to stay with the Lions, and obviously they're still playing. They've struggled a bit here recently, but the offense has still looked pretty good. And so good teams go through ups and downs. So that doesn't really scare me away from his coaching ability. I think he's very very a very very good coach, and so he would be the best option. That would be like the dream scenario. We'll talk about the full dream scenario here in a minute that I have. Moving on to the last defensive, moving to the defensive coordinator side again. Another option that we have would be the Brian Flores defensive coordinator from the Vikings. I think he's done very well with this Vikings defense. They played a lot better than they did last year. Obviously, we know that the Vikings defense last year was not that good, but this year they've really played well. And so, to me, I would like to hire an offensive coordinator just because I think that's what the league has kind of trended towards more these past couple of seasons. And so, because it's an offensive driven league, we all know that if you watch the product, that's just what it is. And so for me, I would like to hire an offensive coordinator. My best option would be Ben Johnson from the Lions for the offensive coordinator to head coach. If I had to pick a defensive coordinator, I would go with Steve Wilks. Moving on, man, to number 4, the last and final step is drafting. Like I mentioned, at the current research date that I did this, the Saints currently held the number 9 overall position in the first round. And to me, there's 2 clear and obvious choices. Now, there's a big caveat to this. If Dennis Allen is not fired by the time of this upcoming draft, I don't think they're going to go this route. That's very important. That's been a very I didn't even think about that until I did my research. I was on Twitter. There's a couple of guys that I follow on Twitter that I look at New Orleans Saints, kind of just getting some information from them. They seem to be very trustworthy, and they're very close to the situation in the building. And so for me personally, I tend to agree with them. I think that if Dennis Allen is not gone, they are not trying to rebuild the situation. They are trying to continue to somehow be a contender, even though I don't think that's possible. So in this scenario where we're fixing the Saints, he's gone, everyone's gone, we're starting from the ground up. And so with the number 9 overall pick, I believe they should look between 2 quarterbacks. Now, if you know anything about me, I have been high on Michael Penix Jr. Since the beginning of the college football season. The kid can ball. He literally looks like a jugs machine when he throws the football. He gets his feet set and the ball comes out perfectly. Watch this guy's tape. Now, it's coming from a fan's perspective, because I don't want some football guru coming in the comment section and saying, you don't know this, you don't know that. You're right. I'm not a technical football person. Purely watching this guy in game-to-game situations. Now, they did struggle in the middle of the season, but they beat Oregon twice. They had a really tough schedule throughout the year. And every single time that the backs were up against the wall, this kid came and he answered the call every single time. He was one of my favorite players to watch this college football season. If you can get me to sit down and watch a college football game, then you're a good player. Because college football to me is just so watered down as a product. Unless it's a top 25 matchup, I'm not watching it. I'm just not. I don't care about Mississippi State versus I don't even know. If it's not, that's to me because none of those teams are any good. They're just not. And so I specifically turned on every single Washington game I could because of this kid. He is a baller through and through. Everything I see from him, like his stats so far. Obviously, he still has the college football playoff games to go. But currently, before the college football playoff games, he has 4,218 yards, 33 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and his quarterback rating overall was 83.4. This guy is just like the prototypical build, 6'3", 213. He can run with his legs, but he's primarily a pocket passer. I mean, honestly, he is. Obviously, he's an athlete, but all these guys are athletes. And when you make it to college, it's funny to me when all these people say, "Oh, he's not a pure athlete." Listen, if you're playing at that high a level, collegiate athletics, and you make it to the NFL, you're an athlete. That's the stupidest thing ever to say some of these guys aren't athletes. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking. They're athletes. They can do things that people like us can't even imagine. And so that's a different rant. But the other person that I think the Saints could look at is Jayden Daniels. Obviously, we all know he won the Heisman. It's well deserved. I would have taken Penix, but we're splitting hairs at that point. Jayden Daniels' senior season statistics are 3,812 yards, 40 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and he had a 95.7 QBR rating. That's number 1 overall versus Michael Penix QBR rating being 10th overall. Had 7 more touchdowns than Penix and 5 less interceptions than Penix. So that's pretty pretty good. Moving on, I just think that maybe it's purely eye test for me. Maybe it is, and I could be wrong. I'm very interested in hearing someone who has played football, has a very strong football background in the comment section, or just talk to me and on anything. I want to get to know the intricacies of football for sure. And so let me know what you guys think, who you would take. I'm very interested to hear that. But for me personally, my dream scenario for all of this would be to trade Kamara, to trade Marshawn Lattimore. I don't want to trade Cam Jordan. That is something that I think is wrong to do unless he wants it. Obviously, he signed an extension last offseason or this offseason. And he's going to probably be a Saint for life. I think that's a good piece to keep around to teach what a New Orleans Saint is. I don't know if anybody would trade for Michael Thomas. I don't know if anybody would trade for Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know if anybody would trade for some of the other guys that we have just because of age and injury history. But I do think we have some very solid pieces that could be moved. And so I think that's obviously who those two players at the very least would be good to move. If I had my Weathers, I would choose Ben Johnson to be our new head coach. Let him bring in his staff. Let him do what he thinks is necessary to get this organization back to where it has. With the number 9th overall pick, I would take Michael Penix Jr. That would be my dream scenario. I think that overall, I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I'm interested to hear who you would take with that number 9 slot. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Please let me know if you want to see more like these in the future and what teams to do. And other than that, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.